written submissions before the amendments are adopted may appeal the matter to the Ontario Municipal Board. In addition, the applicant may appeal the matter to the Ontario Municipal Board if the Council does not adopt an amendment within 120 days of receipt of the application for zoning and 180 days for an official plan amendment. A comment sheet is available at the door for anyone wishing to submit written comments on these amendments. Now, these two items, 3 and 4, are both simply surplus farm severance rezonings to prohibit residential uses on the retained farmland. Item number 3 is a zoning bylaw amendment for part of 1613 Divine Road, and that the Agricultural Affairs Committee recommend Council approve an amendment to zoning bylaw 2008-250 for part of 1613 Divine Road to, as I mentioned, prohibit residential uses on retained farmland as detailed in document 2. I know we have...
That's for Dunning.
That's for Dunning, sorry. So on that item? Okay. And item number 4, similarly, just different address, part of 3940 Dunning Road, the Agricultural Affairs Committee recommend Council approve an amendment to zoning bylaw 2008-250 for part of 3940 Dunning Road to prohibit residential uses on the retained farmland and modify regulatory provisions as detailed in document 2. So we have Anne Marie, Magnaron, thanks. It looks straightforward, but it's handwritten, so from what I understand, you're okay with this item, so if we carry it, it's a very straightforward item, as you know. So on that item? Okay, great. Thank you very much. So we're back to item 2, which is the Water Environment Strategy, Phase 2. Now, so we'll invite Julia and John up to the podium to make a presentation. So this item did come to the Environment Committee last week. I happened to miss the presentation of Environment Committee, so it's great. I get to watch it for the first time.
Just press the button.
Is that better? Yeah, okay. I'm either too quiet or too loud, so. So anyways, thank you for having us here this morning. The Water Environment Strategy has been a long time coming, Phase 2. So I've got a presentation here. I'll bring you through some of the highlights, and we'll go from there. So again, the Water Environment Strategy, if you look at Ottawa and you look at that map there, we have about 4,500 kilometers of watercourses that traverse the city. And really, these ultimately go into the Ottawa River. And so the intent of the Water Environment Strategy is we want to have a long-term initiative that protects and mitigates the impacts of our growing city on the health of the watercourses, groundwater, and wetlands. So again, if you see this map, it's really highlighting some of the things we've done in terms of source water protection, and some of those symbols are talking about retrofit areas. And if you look at the long-term financial plan, we have about, on the books now, $250 million in large capital projects. And those things are directed to protect the watercourses and the impacts to the watercourses that flow through the city. Those are things that you may not think of directly, like the Stewart Street and Sunnyside bioretention projects. And then there's the obvious, like the combined sewage storage tunnel project. So we have lots of these. And while the continuation of these initiatives form part of and contribute to the goals of the Water Environment Strategy, the Water Environment Strategy really identifies a short-term priority action plan for 2016 to 2018, and it responds to priority gaps and opportunities that we've identified with our partners. So how did we get to here? I guess in Phase 1 West, 2014, we went through a process, and it identified that we could achieve benefits by changes to the way we do business. And really 4 areas were highlighted. One was improved coordination with external agencies, in particular the conservation authorities, improved coordination across the city departments, and the need for an asset management approach to assess risks and set priorities and secure adequate resources for our surface water corridors. And finally, the importance of developing community awareness. And so out of that feedback, this is what the overall framework of WEST looks like. So again, if you look at the goals and the objectives, so the goals would be the blue, the objectives would be the brown. Those are long-term objectives. They're designed to be achieved over a 20-year. But in doing that, we're going to be doing 4-year work plans towards those blue columns. And so the plan we have, obviously, to achieve some of these things are very broad. There's some real specific deliverables, and there's some other business change exercises. So in the next few slides, we'll go through each of the sort of highlights, the goals in blue, and we'll highlight some of the activities in there. So this is goal number 1, and coordination is enhanced and funding is secured for effective water environment protection. So again, in the body of the document, there's about 8 particular objectives we want to achieve, or initiatives. 4 of them, again, these are my personal 4 favorite. Different people have different 4, but 4 that I think are very important are: establish a watercourse advisory group to identify priority restoration projects that are achievable. So what we're trying to do is work with our partners to actually deliver some watercourse improvement projects. That's not necessarily based on what is the best from a scientific perspective, but what we can actually build today and have an impact that we can see. We're going to establish a retrofit and stormwater management LID working group to clarify roles and business processes across the city. Again, we have an LRFP that has a significant amount of financial dollars directed towards that, but there are some business matters in getting these things in the ground that we need sorted. We're going to review and update the memorandum of agreement with the conservation authorities for planning advisory services, again improving the way we work together. And then, arguably, probably one of the most fundamental is develop a framework to inform the long-range financial plan as to surface water management corridor needs. So this is critical if we're to enable the city to manage natural system liabilities and assets in a consistent manner. We do that really well with our harder infrastructure. We don't do it quite so well with soft infrastructure. West Goal 2. Under this action area, we have 7 initiatives, and I'm going to draw your attention to 3. And 3 of these are really, the success of them are going to depend on the participation of our partners. So the first one, and this is actually the largest dedicated budget, which we'll talk about later, is we're going to implement priority watercourse restoration projects within the budgets that we've allocated here. So we're going to set up the group to identify them, and we're going to implement them within this 4-year time frame. We're going to clarify and enhance coordination of bylaw and CA regulations to protect watercourses. So things like urban drainage, discharge impacts, salt storage. We're going to look to use our tools that we have now to mitigate some of these in a proactive manner. And then finally, we're going to finalize the guidelines for minimum requirements for rural services to ensure the protection of groundwater. And this will assess agency planners, city planners, and even development planners in formulating their development applications so everybody's on the same page and we know what we're aiming for. Goal 3, development and infrastructure support healthy watersheds. Again, it's a very broad goal. There's 12 initiatives here, and I'm going to draw your attention to 5 because these particular 5 really are aimed to be transformative to our storm infrastructure practices. So the first one would be updating the surface water protection policies in the official plan and zoning bylaws so that we have clear guidance on watercourse protection. Second would be evaluate stormwater facility and storm sewer operating standards and maintenance procedures relative to best practices. So that's something we've not done yet. It's kind of overdue. Thirdly, we've had a lot of talk about this lately through some other initiatives, but we're going to be reviewing the roadside ditch maintenance practices with a view to reducing the impacts we have on natural systems. Another one is develop and launch neighborhood pilot programs in Pinecrest and Westboro to encourage lot level controls by residents and businesses. We've heard a lot through some of the existing user groups that we have that they're looking to move in this area, and some municipalities have already. And then finally, we're going to develop locally relevant training on low-impact development and green infrastructure for our staff and other stakeholders, including the development community. So there's a lot out there, but what we're hearing from the development community and from operating folks is a lot of this stuff works really great in Southern California or in Vancouver, but not necessarily in Ottawa. So we're going to tweak that to suit Ottawa so that it's a benefit and people will want to use it. Goal 4, we have 5 initiatives identified, and 2 of these are really, that I'm going to draw your attention to, are more for long-range planning, and one's going to be aimed at the agricultural community. So the planning ones are assessing the effects of extreme weather on floodplains for risk and emergency planning, conducting vulnerability assessments of prime wetlands, cool streams, and aquatic habitats. And again, that's sort of, we're looking at protecting those sort of, or identifying, I guess, before we can even protect the sort of vulnerable special things we have in our natural environment through our city. And then the third initiative, we're going to support agricultural adoption measures such as tile drain control, crop covers, through grants and demonstration projects. We already do that, but we're looking at, again, we've had pressure for more and to provide more, so we're going to use some of the funds in this particular program to do that. Almost there, 2 more goals. Goal 5, watershed monitoring, reporting, and the data sharing is enhanced. This one I particularly think is very important. 8 initiatives, and I'm going to talk about 4. Develop in consultation with stakeholders and report on long-term water environment indicators. Right now in the water community, there is a lot of, I don't think the word disagreement fits, but I'll use it for lack of something better, about what are the key parameters that we measure health by. And you talk to different scientific communities, different agencies, and they report on different things. We'd like to get everybody at the table, and we don't think this is a large 10-year exercise. We think it's a couple of meetings where we can agree on what are the ones we all agree on, and let's look at integrating those into all the separate reporting we do. So the city looks at certain things, Conservation Authority looks at certain things, and the ministry does. What of those things are the highest of the high, and can we coordinate how we collect those better? So another one is we're going to look at examining the way to optimize water monitoring and data exchange by the city and the CAs. So can we do things like go to web-based solutions for some of the stuff that we do internal right now and share data in a more comprehensive manner? The next is, and this one's underway, develop updated city mapping of core natural heritage features. So things like watercourse, wetlands, riparian, and forest cover, that's core information needed for sound planning. Work on that initiative already began in some of the early actions, and I think we're going to have a big chunk of the city done this year. Finally, and again, this is one that's already started, prepare annual reports on water quality in the surface water management corridors and make the data online. We do, at this point, have an online version of the city water quality index maps that we made live last year. This year, we're going to be releasing a comprehensive 17-year analysis of the background data and putting more information out there that's going to inform the public and our agencies and things like the Riverkeeper as to what we've been doing, and it will assist them. Last goal, goal 6, public is aware and engaged in stewardship. Again, I mentioned earlier, outreach to the public was something that was identified in phase 1, and so we have a bucket of 5 initiatives, and 3 that are very important. We want to implement an outreach plan to enhance public awareness of water environment issues and steps the community can take themselves to protect watercourses and groundwater. We want to develop a demonstration project on a municipal drain to showcase vegetated buffers and other ways to reduce erosion. What we've heard in our efforts to do this is, again, people see lots of sketches, but they'd like to see us build something in Ottawa that's actually practical and will withstand the test of time. But we can't ask them to do that with their money, so we have to sort of have that exchange. And then the last one is we want to support green community initiatives such as stewardship of natural areas, depaving by providing information, technical support, and grants. So this is the money slide. So I think we're going to close with the money slide. So most of the actions we talked about it's going to be very important we deliver them in tandem with our partners, and in this case, most notably the conservation authorities. And while many of the initiatives require no money that we talked about, some of them do require some money. And in consultation with the steering committee, these are the buckets that we established to fund these. So you'll notice that the largest money we've dedicated over the 4 years, $2.75 million, will be going to direct watercourse improvements we're going to identify with the Conservation Authority. Some of those are underway. $1.1 million is going to be directed to developing innovation and stewardship projects on private lands. And then the last one, implementation tools, those are the mapping pieces and technical issues, vulnerability assessments, and there's been about $840,000 directed towards that over the 4 years. So, you know, so to close it out, the water environment strategy's broad goals, 20-year horizon, but we recognize that challenges, constraints, budgets change over time, and so what we've done is we're really trying to achieve those goals or move towards them in 4-year action plans, because the science is changing, budgets are changing, priorities are changing. We have to do something, so we've set broad goals, but very focused 4-year plans, and we've tried to focus on very achievable things. And we will report at the end of the 4 years on where the gaps and the challenges, what we've achieved. And the next report would be submitted in 2019. So that's all I have.
Thank you very much. I know that Councillor El-Shamsiri has a question for you.
Thank you very much, John and Julia. So my question is, there's quite a bit of partner out there. Ducks Unlimited comes to mind, the Conservation Authority. How involved are we with our partner? Because we did a project in Carp with the Ducks Unlimited, and they really enjoyed that relationship with the city, working together for restoration of the Carp River. So, and they like to see us more involved, and as much as we like them as well. But I mean, how can we close the gap? Where is the funding will fit that criteria there? So for restoration.
Yeah, there are, again, we've piloted watercourse projects, but we've also identified other areas, and I'm trying to remember what option it was, but the second bucket 2, I think there was $1.1 million. Those are stewardship. Well, if we go to the money slide, Julia, yeah. So innovation projects, it would be under that particular envelope. So there are funds there to look at projects like that with those people. And so when we talk about reaching out to our partners, again, it's going to be more than just the CAs. In particular, in the urban area, for example, we're going to have to reach out to some of the community groups. In the agriculture area, some of the agricultural groups. And that's typically where we end up with Ducks Unlimited as well. So Ducks Unlimited will be drawn into some of these actions, I'm very confident. You want to add something, Julia?
No, just that actually we have a really good relationship with Ducks, building on the project that was done in your ward, and I think there are already discussions underway about potential partnerships, including leveraging of budgets. So I agree with you, and it is a specific action item to work with partners.
Because we find it working with them, it helps us, because a lot of the times they're sharing the cost, so they're cost sharing, where the CA still funded from the same pocket. Basically, it's funded from the taxpayer, the same what we are funded. So we're funded. So to reach out to groups, whether Friends of the Carp, and I'm sure other areas, they have the same group where they contribute and work with the city. That's quite a bit of cost saving on the taxpayer. So, but I don't see there's an emphasis on this group with this. So
they're not in the text. They are mentioned, and there is a specific action.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, sorry, yeah, just go ahead.
we feel close.
Go ahead.
Just to assure you that, yes, they are absolutely a partner, and there's a specific action item that talks about working in partnership with folks that focus on wetlands, and they are the obvious one.
There's lots of initiatives, and again, I highlighted again what I thought my personal favorites were, but as Julie's saying, there's a very specific one about Ducks Unlimited buried in the text, so it is there.
And just one more point would be, am I off?
No,
All right.
you're good.
The conservation authorities, in partnerships with them, are able to often apply for funds that we are not. So there are additional resources that they are accessing, which are also contributing to these projects as well.
And if I may, one of the question, we know the conservation authority within the city limit, they can offer basically tax receipt to some land donated to us, and So does that fit in? Because also some of those donations, it falls within protection of the wetland or the environmental protected area. Is that fit anywhere with this program? Do we have a place for?
Yeah. No, of course. There's any of those environmental initiatives, again, when we develop them with the partners, we'll make sure the appropriate recognition and, on the land of the feature is established. And if it's eligible for tax credit, of course, yeah, we would inform the people of that through the process. We do that now, so, yeah.
My final question, or part of the comment, we hear quite a bit about the head wall protection, and then we hear about the CAs doing their testing, and then we hear the Friends of the River doing. So I'd like to see us somehow working together with these agents, so it's not everybody's doing something different, and then we'll find out, we could have worked with these folks, and sometimes you get frustrated because you're in a community and you don't understand if there's a mechanism to invite them and work with us, because we don't know, so the headwater protection is quite a bit in area like Carp, where they have to have that quite a bit of work done. Who is working with them from our folks, like from the city, or just the CA, the Conservation Authority alone? I'd like to know, because sometimes you get those questions and you don't know if there is a mechanism in place.
Yeah, right now, we started last year, actually, we started meeting with our internal people and the 3 CAs, the water quality people in all the agencies right now are sort of coordinating their work plans to make sure we're not duplicating. Now, there are some areas where there is some slight overlap, but I think that's been reduced, and on a go-forward basis, we're actually looking at trying to do more of that, actually, through this initiative, where are there areas, for example, that we should just be entirely out of? And this sort of ties into what I was saying earlier. If we find we can agree on certain basic water quality parameters, then really we can probably eliminate even more of that duplication. And so that's definitely a key goal here so we started last year, and they are meeting, they are coordinating, so that we don't end up with the Conservation Authority here Monday taking a sample, us here, and then the Riverkeeper here the next day. But we think we can still improve, and that's a goal in this plan, and there is a dedicated group devoted to that.
And when you spoke about posting the information, does that mean in coordination with public health, or it's going to be separately? Because Ottawa Public Health do water sampling in some area, and I'm not sure if they still post, but I think they do post that information on a condition of the river or which part of the beach is. So is that going to be working together? All what I'm trying to do is see how connected we are with other agencies. That's basically what I'm trying to do.
That's right now we actually are publishing online, and what we want to do hopefully is link, and we did talk to the CAs about this, we're looking at linking the sort of special, because they do have specialized data sometimes they have for provincial reasons, and so what we do is we each post, but then we're linking to each other, and in fact right now it's funny, even some of the stuff the CAs are generating, they're actually generating it from tests that we do, and they use it on their sites. So there is a lot of it going on behind the scenes, but I don't think it's well understood. And I think, we're going to be looking a lot more at highlighting the fact that we do share data and maybe linking our sites together. So, and there's complete willingness to do that. I have met with the 3 GMs and have met with the water quality people, and there's really, there's no barrier to that. Just something that needs to get done. Everybody got focused on the science.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chair. And thank you, Julia, for sending me the information, the additional information you did. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the comments that you made, Councilor Chair. It actually goes back to the water roundtable that we hosted a couple of years ago, and I was vice chair of the Environment Committee at the time, and we had a couple sessions where some residents were making comments, or people in the group, some of the breakaway groups were making comments, and the chair of or the executive director of the Rio Valley Conservation Authority had sort of alluded to that they're doing a lot of these things. So to make sure that as we go through this, as we develop this strategy and it keeps moving forward, that we make sure that we aren't duplicating resources between the CAs and between the city, and that maybe a lot of it has to do with just the city raising awareness about what the CA actually does, because our tax dollars are going there as well. So they are another branch of what we do in terms of stewardship. So if our tax dollars are being spent by the CA, by the city on similar things, we need to figure what that is, and then make sure that we're only doing it once, because the duplication is completely unnecessary. So thank you for that. Any other questions? Councilor Drews? No? Thanks so much for your presentation. Appreciate it. So the item that the Agricultural Affairs Committee recommend that Council, one, approve the Water Environment Strategy Phase 2 report and 2016-18 work plan is attached as document 1 is described in this report, and number 2, that we direct staff to report back on the implementation of the approved 2016-2018 work plan as part of the report to the 2018 to 2022 City Council on a proposed 2019 to 2022 Water Environment Strategy work plan for their consideration. On the item? Okay, thank you. So we have there's no in-camera items. Information distributed. There was a response to an inquiry from a meeting, one of our previous meetings, on the feasibility of installing mock red light cameras. The answer is no. Open mic session. So we have one person registered for our open mic session. It's Mr. Derek McGrath from Manitouk. Derek, you have spoken to us before, so you are well aware of the process.
I did a long time ago, but
Okay.
I hope the process works, because what I'm going to talk about hasn't been working.
Yeah, I understand that. So have a seat, and you have 5 minutes.
Councilor, staff, thank you. My name is Derek McGrath. I live at 1350 Pelkey Court, and I have a concern with the parking bylaws, the lack of enforcement of parking bylaws. To give you a little bit of a background, my neighbor should have been here, but he has had a discovery thing with his lawyer today, so I'll give a little bit of background of how this started. This has been going on over a year, the parking bylaw infractions. My neighbor called 911 on a number of times. The bylaw enforcement officer attended the scene. I was told by the person doing the parking that tickets had been issued and at least one had been withdrawn. I would like an answer if any parking infractions have been reversed on Pelkey Court within the last year. I don't need to know the name of who the parking under the freedom of information, but if there has been any. This person that we're talking about has 5 vehicles, 2 people live in the house, and there's room to put 2 in the garage and 3 in the driveway. Although this would require some rotating, it would be inconvenient. I did not get involved until I was exiting Pelkey Court the other day, and a small car came around the corner, turning right off of Revel. He probably was speeding, but I can't really ascertain that because I wasn't following him. The truck parked a corner, parked in a blind spot. It's legal to park there. He's back from the corner. He's behind a large tree, and this car came around the corner, and luckily I was going very slow, and I took evasive action and drove onto my neighbor's lawn to avoid a head-on collision. The road here is only 21 feet wide, which is beyond the 19 feet. I looked up in the bylaw that there's no parking allowed. This parking issue, I said, has been going on for over a year. The vehicles are sometimes left on the road for 3 to 4 days without moving. According to the bylaw, parking is only allowed for 3 hours between 7 a.m. and 7 p.m. Another issue is we have a young man in our court who has cerebral palsy. He has a motorized wheelchair. We have no sidewalks, which happens, I understand that. If he would have been opposite that truck, we would be at an inquest right now, because I could take evasive action because I could turn my wheel. If he would have been in the wheelchair, he wouldn't have been able to take the evasive action time. Also, there for vehicles parked on both sides, you would not be able to get emergency vehicles down into the court. A fire, an ambulance, I think a police car could probably get through. After my near collision, I approached the owner of the parked vehicle and explained my concern. His comment was, what was he to do as he had 5 vehicles? Well, that is not my problem. And the parking continued unless I called 911 after that to report my concerns. The infraction continued, and I escalated the situation by sending an email to Councillor Moffat. No resolution was forthcoming, and I placed a call for Councillor Moffat's office requesting a phone call the next morning. After not receiving a call during that day, I sent another email requesting to know what action was taking place. A reply stated that my actions were heavy-handed. Well, my idea of any of you people were in this situation and almost had a head-on collision, you wouldn't consider it heavy-handed that I got involved. I approached the person. There was no personal confrontation with the person who parked the vehicle. There was with my neighbor. I was told it almost came to a fist fight. Well, if the bylaw enforcement officer was doing their job, this thing, I would have never been involved. The thing would have been resolved. Scott wouldn't have had to get involved. One of the last issues I'm going to say, I plan to contact Rick O'Connor after the current situation, as I believe the City of Ottawa may be vicariously liable for any damages at this intersection that would occur at a later date. Although the situation on Pelkey is better, it is moved to Revel, which does not respect that the vehicle must be moved 300 meters during that 3-hour time frame, according to the bylaw. In fact, the truck was on Pelkey this morning at 9:30 this morning when I left, which would have been in 1/2 hour of a parking violation. I think this thing has gone on long enough. The rest of us have to respect the bylaws that are in place in the City of Ottawa. We all pay the same taxes, and I believe everybody should be treated equally, and I shouldn't have to come here to get the bylaw enforcement officer to do their job. Thank you.
Thank you.
Time frame?
Yeah, you're good. Thank you, Mr. McGrath. I know that we actually had an email that I was supposed to send you. There was a response from bylaw, and it was just speaking to that they went out on site. They didn't issue a ticket because they didn't catch anyone in a 3. Because it's not, as you mentioned, it's not actually legal to park there unless you exceed that time frame. And I don't think the car was parked within the distance to the intersection of Pelkey and Revel, which is the other issue. I mean, I could suggest that the residents petition to have no parking on the street, but then as you suggest, it might just shift the problem over to Revel.
But Revel is a wider street,
right,
and you don't have the hidden car behind the tree.
So that is something you could consider, is that you can work with your neighbors. I mean, there's 7 homes. I mean, there's 8 if you include the laneway that goes on to Revel. But you could petition to have no parking on your street.
On one side would be sufficient.
Sure, on one side.
And that's what they have done in the Home Bay in Nova Scotia where we have. The fire engines cannot make it up during the festivals. They have the street sign goes for the whole year, even though there's only 3 festivals, which cover about 5 days.
We just did the same thing on Dorak over in Cars, right near Cars and Rita Public School because of fire access and people parking for events at the school. So, I mean, that's something that's well within your reason to do if you'd like to. Maybe the person that has the 5 cars wouldn't sign a petition, but that wouldn't be the end of the world. So if you'd like, you can look into that. We can help you with that. Aside from that, I think when I made the comment about being heavy-handed, one of the great things about rural communities is that bylaw isn't proactive and that they're not out there constantly enforcing. And I think that's because we have free parking in every single village.
But I have a problem with that because I pay my taxes. And why shouldn't the bylaw enforcement? If the person went out there, the bylaw enforcement, a couple of mornings at 7 o'clock and then went back at 10, they would get some tickets. Like I say, the car, sometimes the truck is there for 4 days straight and doesn't move.
Yeah. In a lot of cases, that's not really doing any harm. In this case, it might be.
It's a safety factor in this particular
case, yes. What I'm saying is I wouldn't want it to be heavily enforced throughout the village nonstop. I don't think that's necessary. I think there's a unique case here, and I think maybe there's something we can do to address it, and possibly no parking is the solution. At least then you have your width issue because they're not parking on both sides of the streets. So we can talk about that further. I can have my office work with you to see if we can get a petition done. And then I don't think it'd take long. If you only had 6 signatures to get, it wouldn't take very long.
Okay. Do you need everybody? Quite obviously, the one guy is not going to sign.
No, I think if we had 6 or 7, I think we'd be okay.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Terry. All right, there's no other people sign up for open mic. Notices of motion? None? Inquiries? None? Other business? None? Adjournment?
So moved.
Carried. So our next meeting is actually not going to be here. It's going to be at the Gloucester Alliance Hall at the Fred Barrett Arena on Leitrim Road. This room is being used for graduation ceremonies because it's that time of year, and I didn't feel like I should bump them. So we'll just bump ourselves. So we decided to take our meeting out to Leitrim, which is quite close to Councillor DeRuza's ward, and it'll be easier for Councillor Blair to get to the meeting too. So we've done that for one meeting. It'll still be 10 o'clock, and it's Wednesday, June 29th. It would have normally been held on Thursday, July 7th, but it was moved up to Wednesday, June 29th. So thank you very much. Have a good day.
I am.
Nice to meet you. Elizabeth Mario. Clerks.
From where? From,
Clerks. Yeah.
of course, that's why you guys get to sit over here. I know, it's like you have more clothes on than usual. Normally I see you in a different, of course you come through, right? Like, what's the deal? Yeah, but you have no idea, but you don't know which section we're in. I'm in environmental services, yeah. Yeah, this is the kind of stuff we do. Exactly.
Thank you.
I'm here.
Rosie, can you get me the bags that are in the back there? Huh? Right behind the screen there?